Yeah. Then, have you heard William Butler Yeats? He was a great modern poet. And this Yeats had written a very philosophic poem called Among School Children. And here Yeats says that science and technology is developing day by day. But man cannot solve the two crucial issues he or she has in this earth. What are they? Aging and death. See, our scientists, every day they are working in the lab. They are trying to find out many things. But Yeats says that what is the most important thing? You should not be subject to aging. But we know that we age. Our children, very soon, we will pass on to youth, then middle age, then old, then death. And so this is the cycle. Nobody can escape from this cycle. And so Yeats says that what is the use of all these studies? The two crucial issues remains unsolved. Plato, Aristotle, they all discussed many things, but they cannot give an answer to this. They cannot fix these two problems, aging and death. And so we are reminded of W.B. Yeats also in this context. Clear? And so that is section number 2. Actually, 3 arguments are there. 3 statements are there. In the first part, he compares the lover. See, the young man is compared. His friend, the young man, is compared to a summer's day. Then he makes a correction and he says that his friend is lovelier, more beautiful than the summer's day. Because summer's day is short-lived and it has many problems. Some days very hot, some days cloudy and dim. And very soon summer will pass over to the autumn season. And so he says that his friend is lovelier than the summer's day. And then when he meditates about the summer's day and the short-lived nature of the summer's day, the poet focuses upon the second point, how time ravages everything. Whatever that is beautiful will fade one day. The realization that whatever is fair will lose beauty either by chance or by the course of nature. And so inevitable decline awaits every living thing. Inevitable decline. That is, inevitable means unavoidable. Decline awaits every living thing. And then we discussed about other great poets who discussed the same theme, like Shakespeare himself in another sonnet, then that is titled True Love, and then John Keats in his Ode to a Grecian Urn, W.B. Yeats among school children. With all these great writers, they were great thinkers. They all meditated over this idea. And again another writer called, another poet, Andrew Marvell, he also talks about this aspect of time. And again he says that time moves very fast, it is flying. And so the same idea in a different way is presented by Andrew Marvell, a great metaphysical poet. And then Marvell says that, Andrew Marvell, he says that time is traveling on a winged chariot. And he says that I can hear the fluttering wings of time. Andrew Marvell says that at my back I can hear the fluttering wings of time, the sound of the fluttering wings of time. All these writers focus on the same point. Time is moving very fast. And when time moves very fast, we people become old and we will die. And so we have to suffer because of the passage of time. And the passage of time is moving very fast, and thus time is presented as a villain. And then the third argument. Again, in the third quatrain, we have seen the first quatrain, second, third. In the third quatrain, there is a return to the beloved, but comparison with nature continues. The poet sees the beloved as superior to nature because of the eternal summer that he enjoys. And in the third stanza, in the third quatrain, the poet says that his friend, he is not like an ordinary summer's day. He has no debt. Or the meaning is that he lives in the poems written by the writer. As long as there are people in this earth, as long as there are people to read his sonnets, his friend will remain alive. Isn't it? Now we study, we discuss about this friend of Shakespeare. The young man, the young friend of Shakespeare. That means still he is alive, isn't it? And so that is the point. He says that in the third quatrain, he says he again returns to his beloved. He compares him again with nature, but he says that the beloved is superior to nature because he enjoys eternal summer. In real life, after a short summer, it gives way to autumn season where the trees will shed their leaves. But in this poem, the poet had written about the young man, his friend, and he lives through the lines of Shakespeare. As long as there are human beings in this earth, as long as there are readers for his sonnets, this young man also will live. And the beloved will live in the lives of, through the lines of the poet. And then another image is used here, the image of grafting. You know what is grafting? Grafting a branch to another stronger one so that the grafted branch will live longer. And so, you know, see rose flower, rare varieties of rose flower, it will be grafted on stronger wild variety of rose, isn't it? What is the advantage? The powerful strong variety of wild rose will keep the other one for a longer life, for a longer period. That is grafting. Why do you graft something to a stronger plant? So that the grafted branch also will be having a longer life of the parent plant. Or the branch that is grafted will live longer, like the stronger branch on which it is fixed. And so it ends. And so here, this tender young man, where is he grafted? Into the lines of the poet. And so since he is grafted to the lines of this poet, he will live forever. As long as there are readers to read Shakespearean sonnets, the young man also will remain alive. And so, and then finally, the poem ends in a confident note. The poet is confident that his poetry will live longer than the beloved. And by being part of the poem, the beloved will also live longer than his usual life. And so, this young man is compared to a small branch of tree that is grafted on a big tree. Here the big one is Shakespeare and his poems, and the tender one is the young friend. And the poet says that the grafted branch will live longer. That is the advantage of grafting. It will be having the strength of the tree to which it is attached. And so here the young man is attached to Shakespearean lines. And Shakespeare is confident that his poems will survive the passage of time, isn't it? We all enjoy the sonnets of Shakespeare. And so, actually, in order to immortalize the young man, Shakespeare had written these sonnets. And the purpose is served, isn't it? His sonnets are very much alive, and so the young man also is alive through these poems, through these sonnets. So long as people are alive, the poem will be read and it will be, and again it will be read, reread, and the poet and the beloved will live longer. The poet and the beloved will live for a longer period. And so that is the poem about. The poem ends in a confident note. And so the three arguments are clear. First of all, the young man is compared to a summer's day. Then he says that he is lovelier than the summer's day. And then the discussion on time. How time ravages everything, destroys everything. How everything that is fair and beautiful is destroyed with the passage of time. Then finally, again in the third quatrain, a return to the beloved, where he uses the image of grafting. That is, he says that the grafting is done so that the grafted branch will live longer. And here, the young man is grafted to his lines. And Shakespeare is confident that his poems will survive the passage of time. And so the young man also will be immortalized through his sonnets. As long as his sonnets are read and appreciated by the people, this young man, the friend of the poet, he will also remain forever. He will also remain immortal. The young man has no death. And so this is the poem, a very simple poem. The poet ends in this confident note. And so I will just read the lines of the poem. Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Shall I compare thee? Thee means it's an archaic form. Shall I compare thee, you, to a summer's day? Thou art more lovely and more temperate. See, he says that I compare you, my friend, to a summer's day. Then he makes a correction. You are more pleasant than the summer's day. You are lovelier than the summer's day. Rough winds do shake the darling buds of May, and summer's lease hath all too short a date. And then again he says that a summer's day is not always very beautiful. But his friend is always beautiful. So what happens to the summer's day? Sometimes strong winds are there. And these strong winds will destroy the buds of the flowers. And then again, sometimes these strong winds will disturb the ship on the sea. The ship cannot move properly because of strong winds. And so sometimes summer days are troublesome. Then he says, sometimes too hot the eye of heaven shines. Sometimes the summer day is very hot. And often is his gold complexion dimmed, and every fair from fair sometimes declines. And then some summer days are very hot, some summer days are dim and cloudy. What is the indication? Summer days are not always very beautiful. Sometimes problems are there. Then the problem is that it is short-lived. Very soon summer will give way to autumn. Autumn is not a very beautiful season because it is during the autumn season the trees will shed the leaves. And every fair from fair sometimes declines, coming to the point, the very same point. The realization that whatever is fair will lose its beauty either by chance or by the course of nature. Whatever that is beautiful will be destroyed in due course of time. By chance or nature's changing course untrimmed, but thy eternal summer shall not fade. But he says that, my friend, you are lovelier than the summer's day. The summer's day has many problems. But my friend, you will enjoy eternal summer. Your summer will not end. You will always remain lovely. Again, here you are reminded of John Keats's Ode on a Grecian Urn. There, looking at the carved picture on the urn, he says that the trees on the urn enjoys eternal spring. The leaves will not become yellow in color. Trees will not shed the leaves, because the artist had arrested that particular point of time. Understood? See, Ode on a Grecian Urn. I refer to the poem because the same idea is repeated in that poem also. There he talks about eternal spring, and he says that the pictures carved on the urn enjoys eternal spring season, and it has it will not fall down. It will not be having any autumn season. And here the poet says that his friend will be enjoying eternal summer. That is, summer will not end for his friend. He will be always lovely like a beautiful summer's day. And then, nor lose possession of that fair thou owest, nor death shall brag, boast thou wanderest in his shade. Usually, whatever that has life in it is subject to death and decay. All people, whatever living beings are there in this earth, or what all living creatures are here in this earth, everybody is subject to death and decay. With the passage of time, we will become old and we will die. There is no exemption to any living creature. But the poet's friend will not die. The poet will make him immortal through his poems. And so even death cannot do any havoc on his young friend. When in eternal lines to time thou growest, so long as men can breathe or eyes can see, so long lives this, and this gives lives to the you. And so he says again here the image of grafting. A plant is grafted to a stronger plant so that the grafted branch will live longer. Similarly, this young friend is compared to a grafted plant. He is grafted to Shakespeare and to his lines. And so, the poem ends in a very confident note. He says that, my poems will be read for years. And so, here again, remember, the poem ends in a very confident note, and the poet says that so long as people are alive, this poem will be read and again reread, and the poet and the beloved will live longer. Nothing will happen to the friend, or the friend will be immortalized through the lines of the sonnet. And so Shakespeare is confident that as long as there are human beings in this earth, his poems will be having value. His sonnets will be read and appreciated. And there his friend, the young friend, will remain there immortal. Nothing will happen to him. He will live through the lines of Shakespeare's sonnet, Shakespeare's poems. And so it is the poem that you have to study, a very, very simple one, but it conveys a very important idea. he deals with the transience of human life. He again points out that art is superior to human life. And he talks about time, how time can be defeated. And again, his excessive love for his friend. All these things are revealed through this simple sonnet. Hope that the sonnet is clear to you. And so much for the day. Thank you.